All right. Perfect. And hide floating meeting panels. Okay. We're going to run through some of that again. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Nick Wolf, the president of Ruby Australia. If you've never heard of Ruby Australia, I'm doubly impressed now, considering I just talked very briefly about it. We run a variety of events, Ruby retreats, Ruby Conf, Rails Girls. We run meetups, meditations, book clubs, a whole variety of things. It exists to promote the utilization of Ruby within Australia. Happy to answer further questions on that. My talk tonight is how to be a good male ally. I feel a bit guilty for the audience here because I have to explain again that when this title first went public, I did get the feedback of what exactly is a male ally. And I want to clarify, it is someone who is male who is trying to be an ally, not an ally for males. But I appreciated the question. All feedback is always welcome. For those who know me, that's probably not surprising. So brings me to my next point, which is who is this talk for? So the title of my talk is specifically how to be a good male ally, not why to be a good male ally. So throughout the talk, I will be acting under the assumption that you actively want to try and work on this. Now, I think there could be a whole separate talk on why to be a good male ally, but I am going to continue my talk on the assumption that you are here, enthusiastic, and working in good faith to be a good ally. Now, the talk here was originally formulated around the idea of how to be a good male ally for women in the tech industry. I think that the vast majority of the things I'll be talking about tonight apply not just to women, but many other underrepresented demographics and communities within the tech industry, be they gender diverse individuals, racially diverse individuals, cultural or ethnic diversity. I think a lot of this applies more broadly rather than just men in the tech industry supporting women. Now, first up, I want to say, for those of you that are keen to work on this, thank you for trying. I think that it can be one of the things that I have noticed for people that are trying to work on something challenging, trying to make progress, is that in my experience, there's often sort of a spectrum in how feedback or acknowledgement of what's been attempted and what hasn't will occur. So at one end of this is the celebration of every step forward, like every time you attempt something, every time something is done. And then at the opposite end can be the, I'm searching for a softer word than criticism, but sort of the challenge of every step that has not yet been taken. I would be deeply impressed if someone were able to implement absolutely everything that I will talk about here tonight. But I wouldn't want that to cause any hesitation about taking whatever steps you are able to take. I very much lean towards celebrating every step forward rather than being critical of everything you haven't yet been able to achieve or work on or progress on. And next, I just want to point out that acknowledging others and working on these issues does not diminish your own challenges. So just because I am here talking about some of the challenges that women may face in the tech industry, or other gender diverse individuals in the tech industry, or racially diverse individuals in the tech industry, I would not want that to be interpreted as me considering that the challenges that you may be facing are not worthy of consideration or acknowledgement. I think everyone has their own personal challenges, and that's why I am enthusiastic for the help and support that you are able to offer, no matter where you may be in your individual journey and your own progression in your career. So, how can we be a good ally? The first thing that I will throw out there, which is probably not a huge surprise for those who know me well, is to ask. So engaging in getting feedback from the people you know, the people you are keen to support and encourage, starting that conversation is a fantastic way to find out how you can do that. Starting that conversation may be difficult depending on who you're talking to or how you would like to start it off. So this is your permission. In fact, I will say that I, as president of Ruby Australia and as your speaker tonight, am actively ordering you start this conversation with someone tomorrow, so that if you are unsure how to start that conversation, you can legitimately say, I was officially ordered by the president of Ruby Australia last night that I have to start this dialogue. Do you have thoughts? Do you have suggestions? Do you have ideas? Now, you probably didn't want just the permission to start the conversation. So what are some other ways, some other ideas? I've got a whole bunch here that I will run through. I will give the warning that some of the topics here are quite, can potentially be challenging or distressing, depending on your own personal life experiences. So I encourage you, if you need to take a breather or take some space, if you're watching this at home and need to step away, or you need to pause this video and come back when you're in a good headspace, that's all perfectly encouraged and supported. So let's get started. What are some other ways? I will start off with recognition. So this is recognition of contributions made. So first up is citation. So this whole talk started because I saw a fantastic tweet by a developer called Caitlin Houdon, who had written up a short list of ways that you could be a good male ally. I would also like to give a special shout out to Nadia and Seals, who were a fantastic brainstorming team for some of the ways you can be a great male ally. And also a shout out to Louise and everyone else from the Startmate Women's Fellowship and all the fantastic ideas that they contributed as well. When you ask, you tend to get more ideas, more suggestions, and recognizing those contributions is a fantastic thing to do. Next up, I'm a fan of feedback. So one thing that you can do is share positive feedback publicly. Now, the reason I've got with permission here is different people will like to receive feedback in different ways. I once attended a meeting which had, I would say, about 50 different people, and someone was publicly acknowledged for all the contributions they had made, and they turned bright red, were perhaps not in the space or particularly enthusiastic about being highlighted and sort of presented in front of 50 people. So check in about how people like positive feedback to be shared. You can also do this via Slack. You can do this via tweets, social media, a whole range of different options. Next, highlighting different voices in meetings. So there are a few different factors that come in here. So one, there is making sure that the different voices are being heard. So this could be that you recognize that I have attended a number of meetings where there are perhaps particularly loud voices that are dominating a significant amount of the discussion. And you can either highlight publicly or communicate privately. To give an example, I will use the example names of Alice and Bob. These names are used as like hypothetical names, traditionally in cryptography, but I'll be using them here tonight. One example could be that Bob could say, oh, Alice, you know a lot about Postgres. Do you have some thoughts on this particular idea or this discussion? So that would be an example of doing it publicly. You could also, as I've done in Zoom meetings in the past, message someone saying, hey, I've noticed that there's a lot of talking happening right now. I wanted to double check. Is there anything that, do you feel like you've had the opportunity to voice all the things you wanted to? Did you want me to sort of give you some space in the Zoom? Another fantastic way you can do that. Another thing in terms of highlighting voices in meetings is if Alice suggests something, and then a minute or two later, Bob suggests the same thing, but slightly louder, this would be a fantastic time for you to say, oh, I think that's a great thing to do. Thank you, Alice, for suggesting that idea. Because this is one of the pieces of feedback I've heard repeatedly of someone voicing an idea and then someone else ending up receiving the credit for it. Next, retweeting and sharing the work of diverse voices. This can be a fantastic talk you've seen, a fantastic tweet. I think there are many fantastic content creators out there in the world. And this is another way that you can make sure that the people that are having these kinds of discussions or just making contributions to the tech industry or more broadly get recognized and acknowledged for their contributions. Next, let's talk about if you are in some sort of position of authority. Maybe you're a senior engineer, you're a principal engineer, you're someone who has, maybe you're an organizer. So first up, there's the concept of publicly delegating. So if Bob is the principal engineer, he could say, oh, Alice, you're extremely informed about test-driven development. Are you happy to take lead on developing the test suite for our new project that we're building here? This is a great way that someone in a position of authority can effectively publicly acknowledge and promote the position of Alice, in this case, to be sort of recognized as the go-to person. Along similar lines is that of providing opportunities. So if you are someone who is organizing conferences or meetups, a fantastic way is you can generate programs or initiatives that are going to provide opportunities to underrepresented groups or underrepresented demographics as a way for them to progress and flourish. Okay, let's look at the policies of the companies that you are working for. So first up, ask about parental leave publicly. So if Bob asks about parental leave in a company meeting or when onboarding, it is unlikely to be hugely impactful. If Alice asks, then it is indeed sadly possible, indeed probable, that the higher-ups may be a little less, maybe a little more hesitant about investing in Alice, in considering Alice for progression or promotion, for education. So this is one of the reasons that I think you as an ally can ensure that this information is very publicly and easily accessible. So if that's asking in a very public meeting, if that's asking in the Slack where it's going to be easily searchable, or if that's encouraging for it to be included in documentation for onboarding or easily accessible for your fellow coworkers. Next, let's consider some other leave. So I have no personal lived experience with menstruation, but from all the women and trans men that I have discussed it with, it does not sound like a relatively pleasant experience to go through. But at the moment, almost all companies provide only 10 days sick leave. Now, if something is going to be negatively impacting our co-workers, and that can be addressed by working out what are the policies we can put in place to support them, then having a discussion around menstruation leave is one way we can contribute to that. Along similar lines, we've talked about parental leave, but I think one thing that we should legitimately consider is the idea of having leave regarding that of pregnancy loss or miscarriage. So I can imagine it being a scenario in which someone has to take 5 days off in the beginning of the year due to catching COVID, for example. Perhaps they take a few days off for mental health or menstruation or something completely separate, and then is left with the situation of going through something incredibly, both emotionally and even physiologically and hormonally, extremely challenging, with no idea how supported they are in their workplace through that. I think this is applicable to the concept of trauma leave in general as well. But I think that if these types of policies aren't made publicly available or publicly informed, then regrettably, we will have many people that will struggle silently and not be willing to express their need for more accommodations during a particularly challenging time. And my perspective from a number of people in sort of HR and businesses is that many of them would be willing to be supportive or in that circumstance, but it would need for the individual to begin that dialogue. And if someone is going through something extremely traumatic, asking them to then have the capacity to engage in an extremely challenging conversation is just going to be all the more difficult, which is why I think having this sort of policy, something that the company openly acknowledges and declares that it's willing to support, I think is a fantastic step forward that could be made. So next, either you as an individual or you as a part of a company can support diversity focus groups. So a really great example of this would be Rails Girls, run by Ruby Australia. But they're certainly not the only organization that exists in Australia with the focus of increasing representation and diversity in the tech industry. Supporting these organizations with your volunteering or by promoting them is a fantastic way to contribute. Along similar lines, support diversity-focused spaces. So an example of a physical space here would be a new mother that needs somewhere private for expressing milk for their baby. To use an example that for different types of diversities, I think a prayer space for someone who is seeking to pray during Ramadan would be another example of having a focused space to acknowledge and support diversity within your workspace. I'll also just throw in the concept of support programs. So an example of this is that many companies will have an employee access program. So this might be providing the option for someone to speak to a psychologist or various other therapy options. This is something that can exist and be available for those, but the more you acknowledge that it is there and is available, the more likely you are to see it actually adopted. And financially support organizations. So I will confess this is a mildly self-serving entry, because as you may remember, Ruby Australia is enthusiastic for sponsors. So you can support organizations individually, but you can also have a conversation with your coworkers or with your managers and higher ups and identify which organizations do you think are making the world a better place, and working out what ways you can contribute to them, including financial sponsorship. Distributions of tasks. So assuming you're based in an office, which potentially many of you are not, someone probably handles all the dirty dishes. Someone probably gets coffee for everyone. Someone probably takes minutes during all of your meetings. And I think it is always good to double check that those aren't being distributed based on outdated stereotypes, and in fact are being distributed either equitably amongst the various people in the organization, or are being distributed to the people that are actively enthusiastic about those various tasks. Next, I want to chat about some conversations. So, role modeling. So, every time you either actively try to be a male ally, when you're in a conversation with your peers, your coworkers, your colleagues, or you have conversations about the very act of being an ally, you are role modeling to yourself internally and to others that, hey, this is the thing that I care about. This thing is important, and you're establishing it within the company dialogue, within the general social zeitgeist that, well, maybe we need to keep ourselves apprised and informed of this. Next, engage in empathy. So, as I said before, there are some personal experiences that I have no lived experience with, but I think that we can all do our best to empathize and understand some of the challenges that different people will be going through or navigating their way through. And empathy is one of the best ways that we can attempt to support and hold space for people. So eliminate gendered humor. So when I put this in the slide deck, I tried to do an active reflection of when I last heard some specifically gendered humor in workspaces. And I felt pleased that, well, I can't think of any specific examples in my recent companies. But one, it definitely hasn't been eliminated everywhere. And two, it is a legitimate possibility that I just haven't noticed it and that it still exists. So I think that being able to be aware that this still exists in the world and being conscious of, if we identify it, that this is something we can eliminate, I think is another way we can contribute back. Next, eliminate gendered examples. So if you're working for an e-commerce platform and you say, well, let's imagine we have two customers. We have Alice, who's trying to purchase a frilly dress, and we have Bob, who's trying to purchase a toy truck. I think we can start to use more dynamic and more creative examples. So Alice can be purchasing a telescope or a Lego kit, and maybe Bob is purchasing some eyeliner. I think that this one is another fantastic way that we can contribute. And I think that even having more diverse examples is another way. So at the beginning of this talk, I said, well, I'm using Alice and Bob, but maybe I also could have considered Yuki and Kamiko, or Muhammad and Ijabo. There are more dynamic examples, and representation matters in regards to these things as changing the narrative. Sharing salaries. So there is a significant amount of research that there will be a gender bias in regards to salaries. And one way that you can try and address this, as an aside, I'm personally hesitant around the whole idea of salary obfuscation as a general whole. I think that benefits the company far more than it benefits the individuals, which we are. But sharing salaries is a fantastic way that you can try and allow your co-workers, the people you want to support, to double check that they are being appropriately remunerated for the work that they are doing. So I have the personal policy of any woman that is curious about my salaries, I'm happy to reveal what I was earning at each stage in my career and what, if anything, affected it as it progressed along. If you are hesitant around sharing your salary because of an existing contractual obligation, one, you're probably fine to share your salary at all your previous roles. And I also think you could probably get away with sharing a salary range, saying, well, I'm earning within this general area, rather than saying, oh, I don't want to discuss that. I have had the example where I shared salaries with someone so that she could double check that she was earning adequately. And in fact, she was earning more than me. So I think that sharing your salaries in general will help everyone make sure you're being appropriately rewarded and remunerated. Okay, so be prepared to have difficult conversations with women. If you are attempting in good faith to be supportive, you may have to sit down and chat with some of your coworkers and hear about what they've been going through or what the challenges they've been facing. Being able to hold space for them as they work out what they want to do, what steps they'd like to take, or how they'd like to move forward. Yeah, can often be difficult depending on what they have faced or what they're looking to work on. But having those conversations can be really valuable. Next, be prepared to have difficult conversations about men. So it is entirely possible that if you are chatting to someone and working out how you can be a good ally to them, that they may be talking about someone that you know, someone that you have a very different perception of, or someone that you have seen a different version of, and they are sharing the ways they have been treated differently, and that can be quite confronting. And I think being able to listen authentically and hear the truth that they are sharing about what their experience has been about someone you may care about can be very difficult, but something that we need to do if we want to try and be good allies. And related, be prepared to have difficult conversations with men. So certainly, if you are seeking to have any of these conversations based on stuff you have learned from a coworker, from a colleague, from someone you care about, you should be getting strict permission to engage in that conversation. You can offer and say, okay, is this something that I can support you with? Or do you think you would benefit from me engaging in a dialogue with this person? And they may say no, and you may feel powerless. And that may be as far as you are able to take things. But being willing to have difficult conversations with people that you think aren't being good allies to the diverse range of individuals that we would like to feel welcome within the tech industry is something that we have to get willing to do. Also, along these lines, there is also encouraging people that may feel, or people that have been going through very challenging experiences, that they are willing to have conversations with the right people as well. That could be someone in HR. That could be speaking to a psychologist through the support programs or employee access programs, encouraging people to get the support that they need. Okay, let's talk about representation. Nope, we've gone the wrong way. Okay, so representation. I ummed and ahed about a few different examples of representation that I could include here. And the one that I settled on is that of Ke Huy Quan, who played Short Round in the film Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and was keen and enthusiastic about acting as a full-time career, and tried for many, many years, by his own account, decades, to continue working as an actor, but was tragically unsuccessful. He identified that there just isn't a demand for Asian actors, and decided that he would let that dream die. However, along came a film called Crazy Rich Asians, which he identified as changing his perspective. He saw this representation. He had this moment of, oh, Hollywood has changed, and then decided to go back into acting after working behind the camera as a director for many years, and then went on to win an Academy Award for the, in my personal opinion, fantastic film, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, representation. First, check for representation. So, if you are joining a new company, if you are invited to present at a conference or to participate in a panel, feel comfortable to evaluate, okay, this panel appears to be 12 people and they're all white men. Something doesn't feel quite right here. If a company says, look, we only have 2 developers and they're both men, that's very different than, well, we have 150 developers and 2 of them are women. Evaluating the different opportunities that come along for representation and being able to scan for it is a way you can contribute. And beyond that is encourage representation. So if you are invited to present for the first ever time, or you're getting your first ever job, I can understand being hesitant about employing this. But if you're on your 5th or 6th job, or you've been on 10 panels before, and someone invites you to participate in something, and you think that their representation fails, then be willing to say, look, I think I'd rather sit out on this panel and you give this spot to a woman that would like to present on this topic. Or saying, all right, look, your company sounds like it has a number of things going for it, but I don't know that I am keen to work for a company that clearly does not have the infrastructure or support built in a way that is encouraging women to join and thrive in your organization. Okay, let's talk about encouragement. So this is encouraging and supporting the people you'd like to be an ally to. First up, ask. So ask is a big one for me. This isn't even the last time that ask appears in this slide deck. So be willing to have those conversations about, okay, well, what can I do to support you, to encourage you? How can I help you progress on the things that matter to you? So I have a few examples here. So one is encourage promotion. So this is my chance to talk about Donna Strickland. So Donna Strickland, for those of you who don't know, is a physics professor in Canada. So in 2018, in May, her Wikipedia page was deleted because it was evaluated, okay, your contributions, like, you don't reach notability in terms of what you've contributed to science. The same year she won the Nobel Prize for Physics. The worst thing about this story, that isn't even why I'm talking about Donna Strickland. That's just a separate issue related. So the main reason I want to talk about Donna Strickland is Donna Strickland at the time wasn't, and I will need to double check, maybe still is, an associate professor. So this is the equivalent, a Nobel Prize winning associate professor, in my mind, is the equivalent of a junior engineer writing an entire monolith app themselves. Well, let me clarify. There are definitely junior engineers out there that have written entire monolith apps for themselves. This is the equivalent of someone who is recognized or paid as a junior engineer, writing to the level of skill and expertise of a principal or staff engineer an entire monolith. And when it was discussed with the university, well, why is she still an associate professor? It was the university identified that, oh, well, people have to put themselves forward for promotion, and she just never did that. So we never promoted her. And to their credit, the university has now shifted to the policy where people are put forward by default for promotion, and they have to actively opt out of it. So encourage the people that you want to be a good ally to put themselves forward for promotion, to work out what they feel are the necessary steps for them to progress in their career. Having those conversations, if you are someone with more experience in a position of mentorship, is another way you can contribute. Along similar lines, encourage presentations. So I am sure that Simran and Adam would love to have more presentations submitted here. So encourage those people that you are keen to put forward more presentations. Now, work out what are the roadblocks. Maybe this is you helping them brainstorm ideas if they're not sure what they want to present on. Maybe this is you volunteering to be a test audience when they've first done up their talk. Maybe this is you volunteering to be a co-presenter for when they're doing their first talk, so that it's not as intimidating. Another fantastic example is encouraging them to share something or to blog something. There's a lot of ways that what you put out into the world in a public sense through presentations and blogs will help progress careers, will help elevate people. So what else? Can anyone guess what my next slide is going to be? Ask, exactly. So there's almost certainly things that I have missed on this list. There are almost certainly things where someone will say, actually, I think this would be better expressed or explained in this way, or that slide doesn't accurately capture the importance. So be prepared to have those conversations. You have not just my permission, but my official executive order as a president to go and have those conversations. Now, I will chat about one more thing, which is the ecosystem. So I think there are 3 layers here to consider. We need to recognize that the people we are trying to support exist within an ecosystem at multiple levels. And I have some suggestions on how to improve that or address that. So first up is take care of yourself. Now, I'm aware that the optics of me, a white man, saying that the best way that you can be an ally is to do something good for yourself. But what I care about is results. And if you practicing some self-care if you were taking up paragliding as a way of relaxing, if you were speaking it to the therapist included in your employee access program, or getting a better sleep regime, is going to mean that you are in a position where you can be more supportive, more encouraging, where you are going to have greater capacity to support those around you, then taking care of yourself is a fantastic first step, because if you are not able to navigate things yourself, then you won't be able to support others. Next, observe your company. So you could identify that, oh, actually, I think our company is doing really well for our employees, but maybe the thing that your company is doing out in the outside world isn't making things a better place for the people that you actively care about. I think that there are examples of companies where internally their policies might be quite good, but the consequences that they have on people beyond them, for their consumers and customers, can be quite negative. And finally, consider your politics. So it is entirely possible that you can do everything you can for being a good ally within your company, within your direct sphere. But sometimes the challenges that the people you are seeking to support can exist on a societal level, on a structural level, on a governmental level. If you are someone that identifies that actually I care about being a good ally to women or various other diverse groups, you need to recognize are the policies that are advocated for by my political groups actively progressing women's issues. That's all I have. So I am Nick Wolf. I have my various social medias here. If you need to contact me, I've got my email address. And as always, feedback is very welcome. So you may say, well, you definitely should include this. You should take this out. I will be very disappointed if no one has any other suggestions, because I know I haven't got them all. And again, I just want to finally acknowledge I am grateful for everyone out there that is in good faith trying to work on these issues. You may not always be recognized for your contributions, or your contributions may not pan out as you want to be, as you want them to. And that can be really hard. But I think every time you try is worthy of, or every attempt you make is something that I am grateful and express my thanks for. Thank you very much. Question?
White man in the front line. The trans community is experiencing a particular struggle at the moment. This is all extremely relevant to them as well, of course. Do you think there's anything specific that would be particularly applicable for the trans community? Or?
Okay, so the question for the recording is, the trans community is currently experiencing a number of challenges. Is there anything specific for the trans community that can be done? One, I remember hearing about a company that had a policy for supporting gender reaffirming surgery. I certainly think the inclusion of pronouns, be it in a Slack level, at an email signature level, is another one that occurs to me. I'm certainly missing others. I guess another way is just having, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Not merch, but sort of stickers, posters, or things that make people feel accepted for who they are in a workspace, would be another example. And I know there's a Zoom filter that will include the pride flag around your Zoom window. Those are the things that I have off the top of my head. I am certain there are others that I haven't thought of. And if anyone thinks of any and wants to include them on the YouTube comments of this video, they're very welcome. Do we have another question? Not at this time. So thank you very much. As always, feedback is very welcome. And thank you.